Matt, how did you get started as a videographer?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on here. I've known
Yeah.
of, I've known who you are. We kind of crawl. It's like two passing ships in the night, you and me. I've known who you are, and I'm
Mhm.
local to Wilmington, but I grew up in Charlotte, and so
Oh.
I think so. Wilmington for you and I moved there in 2007, and through marriage, my wife at the time was grew up there, and so that's how I ended up in Wilmington. But Charlotte is home to me. Like I was
Mhm.
born there. All my best friends, my family still lives there. So I graduated high school, went to App State, and right out of college, I we moved to Mexico. I lived in Acapulco, Mexico for about between about 6 months to a year. We had planned on being there longer, but my somebody fell ill. But my point is we lived there. I was working for a nonprofit, and I was
Mhm.
down there and I had video as a hobby. And so I studied business as a major. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Again, I had just
Mhm.
graduated college. And so I
Mhm.
made a video for this organization. We worked in this orphanage, and it's in Acapulco, Mexico. It sounds glamorous, but it was really, I, I'm, survi- I'm, sur- I'm surprised we survived,
Mhm.
just kind of
Yep.
sticking out in the drug cartel area. But I made
Oh
this
man.
video for this organization. Yeah. And that's the video, right? I was showing everyone how I was trying to raise funds for the organization, but I needed to show
Mhm.
them what we needed, what the situation was. So I made this documentary. It was terrible. Like it was awful. I still have it. But I fell in
Mhm.
love with the power of video. And so for me, when I
Wow.
moved back, I was just like, oh man, I love video. I got to do this for a living. I'm already poor. Like, what do I have to lose? And so I was like, I'll do
Yep.
weddings. All my friends are getting married. That's what I'll do. And I was
Mhm.
like, it's easy, right? And filming weddings is not easy. And so I learned through like trial by fire, really, just like
Mhm.
I love doing this. And I did a few. I'll go into this in a little bit. Like I did a few for free just to kind of get used to what this thing is. And I studied, people that were doing it way before I was. But my thing was, I never wanted to shake someone's hand and be like, "Hey, I'm a wedding videographer," because it's cheesy, it's boring,
Right.
it's like it's not it's not good. I didn't want
Mm.
to. I had this aspiration to be some big wedding. I'm sorry, this big movie director, right? I'm
Mhm.
like, it's not really what I in my heart wanted to do.
Right.
And so I set out doing weddings, and they started coming. I just had this mentality of if it's going to get done the way that I wanted to get done, I didn't want to shake someone's hand and be
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
embarrassed or ashamed of what I did. And so I sought out from the very beginning to be luxury, high end, like top of the top shelf. And if people balked at my prices, so be it. And it we've been through multiple recessions, and I've had anxiety and panic attacks, and I've been poor, and I've had comfort, and I've had everything. I've lost everything. But weddings have always taken care of my family, and I'll always be grateful for what we've been able to start with Life Stage Films. And we started it as Life Stage Videography or Life Stage Productions, and it
Mhm.
evolved into, as our branding and our mission and our purpose evolved, we changed our name and our branding and all that, and we're still here today. I mean, I don't know why. I'm kidding, but people still pay us to do it.
That's amazing, man. Thank you for sharing that journey. What I'm actually finding is we have a lot in common, which we should probably catch up and grab a coffee or a
Yeah,
burger or sushi around and something. But
yeah.
so what I'm hearing is you started your company out of necessity, out of a compassion to show what was going on in your area. And something you said that I found very interesting was the power of video, is what you
Yeah,
said. And that's something I also bring into my organization too. Like, I try to be creative second, and I try to get
yeah.
results first. In the results based type of video production, that's helped me to scale. So you realize that in the very beginning, and as you grew your company, weddings were providing, but you also had a interest in commercial work, like documentary work. Is that right?
So, man, I'm trying to answer your question without rambling for 3 hours.
That's okay.
I, I, I started filming weddings out of a necessity for story. I want to
Mm.
reshift your sentence there. Yeah, it gave me a second to think about what I wanted to say, but I started everything with story. And most videographers, most filmmakers, whatever you want to call yourself, do not care about story. They care about being creative and getting the nicest, coolest
Hmm.
shot,
Yep.
getting this rack focus or getting this whatever drone shot, aerial shot. Oh, this looks cool, but we are forgetting that we are hired to tell a story. That's literally the
Hmm.
reason we are all here is relationships. I don't want to. That's why I was like, I don't want to dive too deep into what I really believe because we get our fuel, our gasoline for humans is like relationships, is story, is connection. And for me, I translated that to weddings. But when I was a missionary, when I was down there working for this nonprofit, and let's say religion has nothing to do with that. I needed to get a message out. I needed to tell someone something, a necessity, a need, and I just learned how to do that and translated that into weddings. But I always had a drive to provide
Hmm.
videos for businesses, organizations, and nonprofits. That was always my drive. And so Life Stage Films always had this foundation of giving
Hmm.
back, telling a story, and going way beyond weddings. And so that's why I always had a separate company for corporate video and nonprofits.
Wow, that's amazing, man. Yeah, that kind of summarizes the fuel that moves you forward. And I guess the biggest learning lesson was the need for story. That's why we're all here. And storytelling has been around since the very beginning, right? And
Right.
it's been passed down orally and then through radio and then music and song and now in video. So now that you're at the stage where you are in your life,
I see
oh, I
what you
see
did
what you.
there.
Okay, okay. What's been the biggest learning lesson if someone watching this can hear, and maybe they're going through it as well too? What's the biggest struggle that you've overcome in your business?
Yeah, give me a sec. I mean, the mentality of most videographers in any scope of videography or filmmaking or video production that you do, I feel like most of us, and I may step on some toes here, are starving artists. They
Mm,
are griping and complaining all the time. They're like the lowest person on the totem pole when it comes to, you know, uh, getting what we're worth, charging what we're worth, where's my vendor meal? Stop getting in the way of my shot. Like we have this griping mentality. Um, and what I'm here to say is most of us get super scared in this industry. A lot of videographers don't have the heart for this industry. They think that they are really good at putting out a beautiful product, and they certainly are. And with the cameras that are coming out now, they're doing a lot of the work for us, right? A lot of the editing software is doing a lot of the work for us. And if you don't start out doing it with heart, with story in mind, that's where we're getting content creators from. I mean, I'm not, no, there's a purpose for them, right? But
hmm.
if people want story, they're not going to get it from someone slapping a bunch of beautiful video and putting a song to it and calling it a day. That is not why I am here. That is not why I'm on earth to do. That's not why I want a paycheck. And so there's a purpose for that stuff, but I would tell people that are struggling, the biggest struggle I've overcome is there's ups and downs. And for me going through, I mean, again, I started in 2007. So
Hmm.
try to put yourself back. I don't know when you started, but you're very successful and you have a reputation that precedes you, Cody. But for me, when you've been in business that long and you want to keep staying in business, it's about
Hmm.
relationships and it's about reputation. And I haven't always been on the top of my game. Something's going to
Hmm.
happen when you're in business that long. You're going to struggle. You're going to piss some people off. You're going to have to mend some
Yep.
relationships. But for me, the biggest thing, let me focus here. The biggest thing
Hmm.
that I've learned my lesson from is there's going to be recessions. There's going to be lots of money coming in some weeks and some years, and there's going to be months and years, talking COVID years, where you're like, what am I going to do tomorrow? How am I going to get through this? And if you don't have the guts and the heart to do all that, and I would say it's going to be okay. Just don't
Hmm.
freak out. The biggest lesson I learned is if you have a mission and a purpose and a vision for your business, you're going to be okay. But if you're
Hmm.
just floating around trying to make money with a camera because you think it's cool and easy to do and fun, sure, you're going to have some extra beer money and some pizza money. and some hobby money and some extra side hustle money, but that's not going to provide a living and a way of life for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I was rambling there, but I guess the biggest
No,
thing that I've learned is there's
wow.
ups and downs, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
have the guts to be able to know that there's going to be down years and up years, and not to let your creativity go away or be
Mm-hmm.
stifled because you think, how am I going to survive this month? I can't afford groceries.
Yep.
It'll come back. It'll be there.
Man, something, yeah, something that you've mentioned, what you were just saying, that I say just slightly differently is, so I've been doing it for 5 years. This is year number 5 for me. But the reason why I've been so successful is because in the beginning, I created a why that was so strong that when I was struggling, it wasn't always easy for me. Success wasn't super easy for me. I did the right things, but my why I was in business was so strong that when it was going up and down, emotionally, I was staying consistent throughout the entire thing. I didn't
Yep.
panic. And it seems like that's something that you recommend as well. And I'm actually very inspired by the way you said it. You, if you don't have meaning and purpose and passion for you, it's storytelling, actual storytelling, then what's carrying you to the next stage of business? When things get difficult, what's going to be the thing that makes you get up in the morning? If it's just being creative or creating beautiful videos, which now, as you mentioned, anybody can do, that's not enough to keep moving forward. So for me, that was very inspiring. Thank you for sharing. Anyone listening to this, having a strong why and a strong purpose
Yeah.
before you even start your business is more important than knowing how to use a camera, because that's what's going to get you from step point A to point B. And for me, I knew clearly where that was going. So thank you for sharing that, man. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
The
Something I want
why.
to, yeah, go ahead.
Let me piggyback off your why. I love that because for me, like I had this vision of like, oh, I'm going to do this for 10 years. Like I had this business plan. I have a coach. I have many
Mm-hmm.
coaches in my life, right? And so back then I was like, I'm going to do this for 10 years and I'm going to sell this business. I'm selling, but you can't sell a business like this. It's like, okay, I'm going to be rich. I had all these grandiose ideas, but
Mm-hmm.
I say all that because my why still gets me in the right mindset for jobs. A wedding that I had last weekend up in the mountains, beautiful and gorgeous. If I'm burned out, if I didn't care about this stuff anymore, it's going to be reflected in the footage that I'm able to capture. And so for me to be able to show up and say, what is my why? My freaking why for weddings, let's talk about weddings. My why for
Mm-hmm.
weddings is they're going to watch this way more than I am, way more than I've seen on the editing screen. Like I've seen this over and over and over again. But guess what? This is one of those only things they're going to cherish forever. And we've heard the buzzwords forever about
Mm-hmm.
wedding videos.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm at an event and my feet are sore and I miss my kids and I want to
Mm-hmm.
be at the party that I was invited to this Saturday, but I can't, I've got a wedding. My mentality has to be, oh my gosh, this is the biggest day of this family's life. And I get to be here. I get to be fed and get to have a party with them. And I get to find little moments that they're not going to even know are happening. That gives me, it's an addiction. It gives me like this adrenaline rush, like, oh my gosh, they're going to love this. You know what I'm talking about. When you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing it in the screen, you're like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, they are going to love this.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff right there is my why. It's my why right there. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm still filming weddings. I'm not tired of it. And the moment that I get burned out and the moment I'm tired of it, you'll see me retire. You know, it's not like I'm LeBron James or anything.
Oh.
We can keep doing this, but like I'm not going to do it if it's just for a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
There.
Man, that's very encouraging to hear because there. So I did a poll last month asking people how much money you want to make as a filmmaker, and I listed all the different ones from 100K, 250, 750, and then a million. It was well over 80% of people picked just $100,000. That's all they wanted to make, right? Now you can obviously make way, way, way more than that. I think you and I are evidence of that. But if you lose your commitment to your why and your passion, then doing it for a paycheck isn't enough to be satisfying, to keep you moving forward, and it will reflect in your work. So anyone who's just doing videography for the paycheck, There's probably other careers out there for you that you can pursue if that's all you're doing. But the biggest takeaway, and then there's something I want to talk about, is if you care for people and care for your work, you'll be successful, plain and simple. Start with caring, right? And I've seen that in the kind of work I do now. I dabble in weddings here and there, but I'm primarily in the documentary space, service-based industries. So I measure success a little differently. And when I do a video that gets released through a nonprofit of some sort, and then I see policy by the government get implemented because enough people talked about this and I'm the one created the video, that's where I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I can actually do something. Like,
yeah.
and the guy who started Apple, I can't remember his name right now. Do you know Steve Jobs? He said
I was
the
like,
most
what?
powerful person in the world is the storyteller because they control the narrative. So, so there's that. Now, something that you mentioned that I want to talk on, just get your feedback on for anyone who's concerned about what is coming in the near future or may not be coming in the near future is change. Now, you went through the recession in 2008. How did you survive that? And what was that like?
You think that I'd have some kind of formula or, hey, this is, I don't know, man. I don't know. Let's go back to, I had a purpose. I had a vision. I did not want to give up. I had this belief system. I had a belief system in my head that this is what I'm supposed to do. So if this is what I'm supposed to do, it will happen. It is the mentality, like I'm saying, the starving artist mentality, like destroyed me for many years. Like I had this thing, like if I build it, they will come. Like I'm the best. I'm so creative. They're gonna throw money at me. Well, in a recession, even if you're saying that you cater to the luxury crowd, everyone has a budget. No, whether you're rich or poor, you're trying to figure out what's happening out there. And so when the economy shifted, I'm thinking like this because I had just had a newborn daughter, young family. I got the starter house. I've got the new car. We're doing the thing. We're paying our taxes. We're being Americans. We're just chugging along, and then everything crashes, and I'm like, what is happening here? The way I got through it is relationships, are the people that I connected with, I was not a videographer or a filmmaker that wasn't, my mentality was trying to serve people. So yeah, I was going out there networking and meeting people and having lunch and breakfast and going out and having fun. But you have to do networking the right way. If you go into networking thinking like, what can I get out of this? Going back to what you said about serving people, you're not going to survive. Whether it's a recession or not, people are going to cling on to the fact that I don't get anything out of this guy because all he does was want to talk about himself. If you're afraid of networking, go in there and ask people to talk about themselves. That's how you get through anything. And then once you realize what they need help with, maybe you can help them, or maybe you know someone that can help them. So that's a whole nother subject right there.
Oh, but, yeah. My audience is very, very familiar with what you're talking about right now, because that's how I scaled my business. I did something called BNI, which you probably already know of. It's a networking group, but what you learn in that group, it's not about me, it's about what you can do for other people. Now, it's just fascinating because if the world worked like that, it'd be a better place if everyone just looked out for someone else and then come full circle. But so you built relationships and you looked at how you could help other people. That's how you made it through the recession.
Yeah, but one more thing. This is like the icing. I'm glad we could maybe wrap this around because what we were talking about a minute ago with like, I don't know, trying to wrap this together with getting paid with your worth and getting through a recession, but also getting like this. Oh yeah. So when you were saying like this ceiling that we think we have in the wedding industry, I was like, man, if I could just make $100,000 being a wedding videographer, I would be rich. And then, that's great. Okay. That's a lot of money to a lot of people. Let's not negate that. But when you kind of realize what your purpose is, what your why is, and how much you're worth, here's the lesson. Here's how I got through a recession. I was still able to attract the luxury market. The way I describe it is I was able to get past the breakers, so to speak, all the middle of the road businesses. I don't know if I'm
Mhm,
spitballing. Let's just say in the wedding video industry, let's say the two to four, 2 to 5 thousand range. That
mhm,
middle of the road, like, hey, we're not the worst, we're not the best, but we're good. Buy our
mhm,
services. Those go away when there's budget issues. All that stuff goes away. You're either going to get really cheap or you're going to get quality. And the quality tests, that stands the test of time with
mhm,
recessions. Here's my
mhm,
point. I was charging what I thought I was worth because I was able to get what I was worth. If you are only afraid to charge $10,000 and then you get there and you're like, hey, I did it. Hey, I'm a $10,000 wedding videographer. Great. Congratulations. But and I can show you the invoice. The first time I was able to charge like 20 grand for a wedding, and I was telling my friends in the industry about it because I used to speak and teach and do webinars
mhm,
and coachings, stuff like
mhm.
that.
Oh, nice.
They'd be like, show me the proof, right? Once you get that biggest wedding you ever got, what happens? You've gotten one. Everyone listing's gotten their biggest wedding they've ever gotten. What happens? Oh man, if I get paid this, that means other people will pay that. And then once you kind
Mm,
of get that mentality of like, yeah, I'm going to charge this because I'm worth it because someone paid me that. The
mhm.
sky's the limit. And that's how I was
Yep.
able to stay, just kind of chug along and say, no, I am worth this much. I didn't
Mm,
discount the way I wanted to. I didn't just give away my services because I had a family. I
mhm,
wasn't just some kid that could maybe crash on the couch of a friend through a recession. I had a
mhm,
family to provide for. And like you were saying earlier, as men, something innate in us, there's a gut feeling in us like we've got to do what we've got to do.
mhm,
And when you have your why, you get paid what you're worth as well. So anyway,
mhm.
that's that.
Wow, man, that's powerful. And there's a lot of wedding videographers who are in the film school. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and I love the way you brought it all full circle. So basically, you need a strong why for your business before you even start, not just for your business, but for your life. And then you need to commit to serving other people and building relationships. That's how you're going to get clients in the door. And then you need to understand your worth and believe it as well too. Because once you believe your time is valuable, something you learn as a parent, which you learn really
Yeah,
quickly when
right,
you have a
right.
kid, you realize, okay, I just had a kid. Now my time just got cut in half, which means 100% of my effort is now 50%. I need to make it count.
And
And
my
I want to
expenses are
spend more
more.
time. Correct. And, and yeah, okay. So anyone who's not a parent, you need to know your worth, and that's how, and then start charging in your price, right? And then you start attracting that ideal client. And something that I've found is when people don't charge a lot of, well, I can't say a lot of money, but don't charge over, let's say $10,000, then they think no one's going to pay me that. Well, what you find is when you start charging 10, 20, 30, $40,000, you attract a different audience who says, I trust that product or service more than someone charging this. There's a lot of those little projects out there, and people are fighting, gnashing for teeth over that $4,000 or $5,000 budget. But when you go to the $20,000, $30,000 range, less people competing for it,
Right.
and those clients are looking for those people more. So,
Here's the fun part about
yeah.
everyone else getting booked up because they're let me say this too. There is not a wrong answer to a price point that you start at, especially if you're just starting out. My God, if you're listening to this, like I started doing stuff for free. And then in my heyday, when I was like, yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah, my sweet spot was like 3,500. There's nothing
Mhm,
wrong with that. What is something, there is something wrong with staying in that price point when you're making pennies on the dollar and you have these expenses that are not really, I mean, if you're
mhm,
just trying to compete with your competition and say, well, they're this much, I'm going to only charge this much. That is a recipe for disaster and a race to the bottom. And I've experienced it because I got
mhm,
scared and I realized I have that experience now of like, hey, don't do that again. Just
mhm,
stick to your guns, charge what you're worth. And people are attracted to that why, and they will pay that because
mhm,
they know what they're getting,
mhm,
And
mhm,
so for me, let me back it up too. I
mhm,
don't just charge 20,000. That is not true. Especially during COVID, like I learned to adapt and make a profit on a $4,000 wedding, right? Like there's nothing
mhm,
wrong with knowing that you can charge, let's say 3,500. If you're making a profit, great. Absolutely. You're bringing home money for your family. Great. But if you're not, that's only something you only you know that stuff. And if you're bragging online that you're booked solid for 2024 and we're almost full for 2025, guess what I do at Life Stage? I wait till all those dates are gone, and then people are still going to have to come to me and be like, listen, everybody's booked. We need a videographer. I'm able to charge what I'm worth because I am available. Right? Does that make sense?
Whoa, that is a strategy that I have not once heard. That's impressive.
I don't mind telling my competition because they're listening. Because
Wow.
if they do the same thing, think about it. We wouldn't be griping about getting, I'm not charging what I'm worth. I'm not getting what I'm worth. I'm so burned out. You never will be burned out if you love what you do and you're getting paid what you're worth. I promise you that.
Thank you for sharing, man. Something that just came to mind too, because you mentioned like competition is listening. Yeah, competition is listening. Something that videographers tend to do is fight for the job and wrestle against each other when there's two things to consider. First, nobody knows your industry more than other videographers. So
Right.
build relationships with them. Two, if you guys work together and stop competing on pricing, what you do is increase the standard of business within that niche, right? So if every videographer started charging 10K all in America right now, companies would go to videographers and say, oh, well, I guess that's the standard. But no, you got dudes who are in that starving artist mentality charging $500, and then it lowers that standard, which I think it's okay because that leaves actually a ton of opportunity for people like you and I. So
Yep.
there's just two things to consider there, but man, this is solid. So what does the future look like for you now in your business? Where are you heading?
Man, I'm so excited about that question because I have to you have to have a vision for where you're going. I years ago I went through a divorce. I've actually that's we could talk about what you go through personally trying to be creative in this industry, and that's another subject of trying to be at top of your game and you're going through personal hell is another thing. But I thought that I was going to give it up a couple years ago. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And my clients and the people in the industry noticed that. They kind of said, Matt's off, man. Matt's not himself. I heard it's not that I was just getting by, and I'm saying this because I can talk all I want about like, man, I'm doing good. I've weathered storms. Storms is a huge word for me because you can go through personal storms, but you still got to put food on the table for your family. And you can't stop being creative for families that this is the first wedding. I've filmed thousands of weddings, right? But this is the first wedding of this bride and groom. This is their only wedding, maybe of their, so I have to have that mentality. So I have not given it up, and I'm continued to be baffled by families that continue to trust me because I've always had my why, and I got out of that rut. I've got out of that personal rut, and people are attracted to that too. You have to have the personality behind the camera too to be able to relate to people and to connect with people on a personal level. And so I feel like I still do that, and I'm moving more towards corporate work now. I mean, my Harvest Filmworks company is getting more and more and more corporate work, and I feel like that the next decade is probably where I'm going to go with that. Like I'm still gonna. The only reason I wouldn't do weddings I'm still going to do probably 5 or 10 a year, and still. My mentality is if you're going to pay me to go to the Bahamas or Italy or New York or Charleston or Asheville, I will go. That sounds great to me, but I'm not going to be the weekend warrior anymore, just filming any wedding I can get. That's not me anymore. That's fine with me. And so corporate work is steady income. And that's another thing that weathered the storms through recessions and things like that are diversifying. I don't just do weddings anymore. And I learned the hard way with that of not putting energy and focus into stories that matter for companies and businesses and organizations. So that's where I'm going with that.
Matt, thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared today. You've spoke about how you started, what influenced you, what keeps you grounded moving forward, the things that you struggled with through the recession, through the pandemic, how you kept moving forward, and what the future looks like for you. You mentioned you wanted to probably do less weddings, but you're not opposed to doing them if you're going to these places and they're paying you well, but you're not doing the weekend warrior stuff anymore. And you're focusing more on the commercial, documentary, corporate side of things, which I believe is great. And I'm also doing the same thing. So we covered a lot of ground here. What's one final message you want to leave with everybody?
If you do what you love and you have a heart for it, people are going to be attracted to that. And people are going to want to gravitate towards having a relationship with you and your company. To be top of mind to people is gold. That's huge nowadays when it's a saturated market. But when you serve other people, when you care about other people's hearts, and then you put your own heart and soul into your work, and you're not just doing it for a paycheck, and you're not just doing it to get this edit out really fast and put some content up online, you're gonna be super successful, and the money's gonna come. You're gonna be able to charge what you're worth, and you're not gonna be fighting with your competition. You're gonna be friends with your competition. One little cool story: I saw a buddy. We had a celebration of life in Wilmington for a family in the wedding industry. And so all these folks, I mean, it was so fun to be able to see all these people coming together, not at a wedding, but to mourn and to hug and to cry and to laugh. And so my buddy, all my competition was there. My buddy Adam, who's a friend, I don't consider him competition. We have been Adam Gilbert. He's in town. I could call him for a lens if I needed to. I could call him if I got sick with the flu, and he might have a shooter that could fill in for me. My point is, we have the type of, you're going to be successful in this industry if you take your competition and find a way to help them, because they'll find a way to help you. And so for me and Adam, we were talking at the celebration of life, and to be able to have an honest conversation with your competition and say, man, weddings are down this year, which if everyone listening for 2024, weddings are down this year. Weddings are awful this year. So if you're hearing this, know that you're not alone. Know that, no, don't give up. But when you can have healthy conversations with your competition, instead of saying, oh man, I'm booked up solid. I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm good. We're just like, man, it's crazy out there, right? It's crazy. And he's like, yeah, man, yeah. And so I encourage that. I encourage you to follow your heart. Your money's going to come. The money's going to come, and you're going to be able to charge way more than you ever thought you could. But I've enjoyed this so much, man. I'm like fired up. I'm like ready to jump up and get out of here.